So a few days ago, I tried to take my money out of Gemini because I had heard that there were rumors that they might be insolvent, but it's not actually the case, and I'll explain to you guys what I mean. So I had a couple of tokens still left on the exchange, and I said, you know what, let me go in there because I've been dragging my feet on getting the rest of my tokens out of there and into storage. So I went in and I tried to sell off, well actually I first tried to convert all of my Doge. Believe me, don't judge me because I had some Doge, it was for a reason. I was converting my Doge to Ethereum, but for some reason it wasn't letting me. I don't know if there was something wrong with the system, it just wasn't allowing me to do that. So I said, all right, if I'm not able to convert it to ETH, which made me feel a little bit weird because I wanted to ship it out into my wallet, what I did was I ended up just selling it, cashing it out, and then making it go back into my bank account, which I thought was going to be a solution, but it just kept telling me that the process, the payment was still processing, it was taking a while, and it made me feel a little uneasy. And then I had a little ETH on there too, so then I tried to transfer the ETH out. Now I'm not trying to spread FUD or anything like that, guys, but I tried to send this ETH out, and it wouldn't, like they kept making me jump through hoops, security hoops, and overwhelming security hoops. So I just gave up. I said, you know what, I'll just deal with this later. I didn't have the time to do it. And the reason I'm telling you this is because later on that day, I came to find out that there were about $570 million worth of withdrawals that were coming out of Gemini, which is probably a record for them, right? But they're not alone. All these exchanges are seeing the same thing happen. People are taking their tokens offline and they're putting into cold storage, which is great. That's what crypto should be. You should have self-custody, which is amazing. I love that. But the problem is not so much that. The problem is that some of these exchanges actually don't have your crypto. So what we're seeing right now is a good old-fashioned bank run. Now, it's funny because some people don't really understand what a bank run is. So let me explain to you how a bank run got started and where the term comes from and how we've actually been seeing this. Even most recently in 2008, we actually saw real banks actually go under because of bank runs. So a bank run is basically this. Let's just say I go into a bank and I give the bank $100 to deposit. Well, the bank knows that not everybody comes in every day and asks for their money. As a matter of fact, only at max maybe 10% of people come in and withdraw their money when they come to the bank. So they've come up with this idea that if we get $100 in, well, we can lend out $90 and keep 10 on reserve, because then we can use that money to pay other people and we can put the other $90 to work in loans and credit cards and things like that. But the problem is that sometimes when there's a huge uncertainty in the market, people come in and they want their money more than 10%. So let me give you this actual real life example. In 2008, after Lehman Brothers went out of business, people were getting very scared and they panicked and they all rushed to the banks and tried to get their money out. Unfortunately, more people went into a bank by the name of Washington Mutual than some of the other banks, and then Washington Mutual actually had a bank run to the tune of 16 and change billion dollars, right? It was so much, it was like about 11% of the actual money that they should have had on reserve. So because of that, the FDIC actually stepped in and said, hey, WAMU, you guys don't have enough money to continue operating on a day-to-day basis. So they were left with no option, and they had to actually sell the bank to JP Morgan Chase. Now listen to this. This is just a side note. They sold the bank for about $1.9 billion, right? And the bank had $300 billion in assets. Now it wasn't just 1.9 billion and it was worth 300 billion. There were actually some expenses that JP Morgan had to also take care of on behalf of Washington Mutual. Now listen to this. They had to write down about $31 billion in loans, and they had to set aside another $8 billion to actually keep the bank running. So all in all, they probably paid somewhere around $40 billion for Washington Mutual, but it was worth $300 billion. Imagine getting that kind of a deal, guys. I mean, obviously that's in the billions, but it'd be equivalent to you getting a house for $40,000 and it's worth, I don't know, $300,000. That's basically what the same math works out to. Unbelievable numbers, right? Really, really crazy. But I'll be honest with you guys, this is gonna happen again, and it's been happening again in the crypto market, and it can even happen again in the banking sector, because even though the fractional reserve system that I just mentioned earlier, where banks send out 90% of your money, even though that doesn't even exist anymore, because after the pandemic, banks don't have any requirement. They can lend out all of the money, but they don't. They still actually keep a lot of the money on reserve. Well, not a lot of the money. Most banks keep anywhere between 10 to about 13% of the money on their books. Maybe some banks, if they're really super conservative, maybe even 15% of the money on reserve. So they still have that same problem. And if we have that bank run again, a lot of these banks can go out of business, just almost kind of like Credit Suisse was going to go out of business not too long ago. These things can happen again. But unfortunately, in the crypto world, we don't have the FDIC. And with that being said, we recently just had a company by the name of Genesis kind of go through the same thing, right? So they made a really bad loan. Genesis made a really bad loan to FTX. FTX in exchange gave them some collateral, which was basically garbage, the FTT token. So now Genesis is out of the money, which was about $175 million in loans, and the collateral that they gave them is completely worthless. So they have this huge hole on their balance sheet, and on top of that, they have a lot of other assets on their books that are probably worth a lot less than they were when they originally made these loans. So it came out recently that Genesis needs about $1 billion in order to continue operating. And the reason I'm telling you this is because Gemini is directly connected to Genesis, because Gemini uses Genesis for their Earn program, where you can take the crypto, and some of you know this, but some of you may not, where you can take the crypto, you can stash it away, and you can earn interest on that crypto. But now the people who have chosen to do that, they have their crypto locked up in there, and God knows when they're going to be able to access that again, if ever. Because if Gemini files for bankruptcy, they're done. It's pretty much done. The money's gone, right? But Genesis is working on a plan, or hopefully they're working on a plan to try to keep the company open, because they're actually owned, and their parent company is a Digital Currency Group, which, if you've never heard of this company before, it's a humongous part of the crypto ecosphere. Basically, they own a lot of companies. There's so many companies they have ownership in. I can't even imagine it. But they directly control a few that I'm going to mention here. Number one is that they control another company by the name of Grayscale, and they also obviously control Genesis, right? These are their subsidiaries, their direct subsidiaries. But the problem is that if one goes down, it could literally be a domino effect to take the others down. And if a Digital Currency Group gets affected or has to bail out Genesis, well, guess what? They're going to have to sell off a lot of the cryptocurrency that they have, and they are one of the biggest holders of cryptocurrency. So if they have to start liquidating Bitcoin and Ethereum, well, that could drag the entire market down. Meanwhile, we know that FTX is going through bankruptcy and restructuring, and the gentleman who's in charge as a CEO right now, his name is John J. Ray III. He was also the same restructuring CEO who was in charge of Enron. He actually came out and he said something that was mind-blowing. Check this out. Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here from compromised systems integrity and faulty regulatory oversight abroad, to the concentration of control in the hands of a very small group of inexperienced, unsophisticated, and potentially compromised individuals. This situation is unprecedented. So what he means by compromised individuals, I don't know, compromised by drugs, compromised by other people, who knows, but they screwed up royally. On top of that, he goes on to say the following. Mr. Bankman-Fried, currently in the Bahamas, continues to make erratic and misleading public statements. Mr. Bankman-Fried, whose connections and financial holdings in the Bahamas remain unclear to me, recently stated to a reporter on Twitter, F regulators. They made everything worse, and suggested the next step for him was to win a jurisdictional battle versus Delaware. Meanwhile, Sam's living his best life, walking around in grocery stores in the Bahamas, acting like nothing has ever happened. I can't wait for this guy to get extradited. I don't know why why is it taking so long? If it was anyone else, they would have been gone already.
My safe word is pineapple juice.
Bring your ankles up to your butt.
That's how far I go. You think I'm in Pilates? Pineapple juice.
But this story is still unfolding, so stick around for more. Thank you guys for watching. I love you, and I will see you next time.